Today's topic came from someone who posted in the Facebook group about their campaign stopped working. And so I thought it would be a great topic to talk about because it's a common problem for pretty much anybody who's online. Hopefully you can see my screen. I haven't done something stupid like not recording this. Hang on, let me just confirm that. It's the biggest beef my team has with me. It's like you forgot to record again. Right. I think we are recording. Okay, which is perfect. Awesome. All right. Hopefully you can see my screen, which is Conversion Lab, 21st of October. Right. So today's topic is it would help to change this. It is going to be about fixing dead campaigns. All right. That's probably a better way to put it. Cool. All right. So this is firstly not for new campaigns. This is for existing campaigns that have stopped working, which is majority of the campaigns out there. We'll do a separate session on how to think through new campaigns because it's a bit more involved. And you do experience quite a bit of volatility when you start out something new. So it requires a different approach. So this is not for new campaigns. The second thing is don't panic and work the problem. Now, in almost every case, whenever someone reaches out to me and we jump on a call or something, or hey, share some details, you always find out that they don't have any tracking in place, or they don't quite have the granular tracking in place, which they could have. And it's almost like in 2024, it's not an option anymore. You just have to do it. Whether you use the data or not is going to depend on situations like this. And so you let's say something stopped working and it's like, okay, cool, let's break the problem down. And like, oh, I don't have the data. Well, you don't have the data, so now you're guessing. So you're posting in Facebook groups, my campaign stopped working, and you're gonna get about 400 different comments on why something may have stopped working, when really you should be going back to the data, which will tell you what the hell's going on, right? So no excuse. You gotta have the tracking in place. It just happens people turn up to these calls, they have their tracking in place, while almost 99% of people out there don't. So congrats to everyone on the call who does have their tracking in place, right? Because that then gives us an understanding of what has stopped working, right? So stop guessing. So these are quick checks that you can do very quickly to identify what actually stopped working. So first is your conversions, right? Now, it's sort of obvious that the conversions have stopped, which is why it's become a problem. But the question is, well, what broke? So go and check your conversions tracking first. There was, this is maybe about, I don't know, 18 months ago now, 2 years perhaps. There was a campaign that someone was running. It's about, I don't know, what, a couple of $1 million a month in ad spend. And they reached out to me in a panic saying, Nick, our funnel has just stopped working. We don't know what's going on. So that's the first thing I checked. It's if you're saying that your conversions aren't working, well, let's go and see if the conversions actually are happening, right? It's kind of like the obvious first step. And we can see that the volume of leads are coming through, but we can see that it's tapering off. And we check the conversions tracking, and sure enough, the conversions, someone made some change somewhere, or some update happened, something either inside their funnel, or I believe it was someone on their team who'd messed around with their GTM, Google Tag Manager container, and broke their tracking, and didn't realize that they'd broken. And so it takes about anywhere from 24 to 72 hours. In this case, it was the YouTube traffic, for Google to not know what kind of traffic to send you. That's how data hungry these media buying AI systems are. So tracking breaks, everything breaks pretty much. It doesn't matter, you got the best offer, you got the best anything. So that's the first thing to go and check. Just make sure that someone hasn't done something silly, or perhaps you thought there was some benign change. You don't know, it's like, hey, I'm just changing a small script or something, and all of a sudden it breaks. So making sure that after every change that you have some sort of process to go and check your tracking out should be mandatory as part of any change. So if that's the case, then you need to have some SOPs internally, especially if you're running a large team, about when do you make the changes, how do you make the changes, and what's the process to follow if you make any changes, which is i.e. to go and confirm that tracking is still working. Because the point is that it's it seems painful, like, oh man, I gotta go check all this tracking thing out. But it's literally a 5 or 10 minute check compared to the alternative, which is drying up of leads within 2 to 3 days, and then perhaps going down a rabbit hole for the next 5 days trying to fix what the hell's going on. And then you fix it. It takes about 3 or 4 days for the traffic to ramp up again. So the 10 minutes versus almost, I don't know, let's say 5 to 7 or 10 days worth of losses, it doesn't compute. So it doesn't make sense not to have this in place or to have an SOP in place around changes, because of how critical they are to the business, right? And I hope that kind of makes sense. That is an obvious point. All right, so your funnel links and flow, this is where you go from your ads to your thank you page and making sure that every step is working. Especially, with most modern setups, you're going to have, third-party integrations that are sitting inside your funnel. You're going to have, multiple apps and platforms that you're working with. There's a whole lot of stuff that's going on behind the scenes. And so, for example, let's say you may go from ad platform to something like an Unbounce. From Unbounce, you may come to Leadshook. From Leadshook, you may go back to Unbounce, or you may go back to some shopping cart system or whatever it is. Well, making sure that none of that's broken, right? So that's the next thing to go and check, and making sure that data is capturing and flowing like it was supposed to. Right now, the third thing to check is the natural and pricing volatility that happens. Sometimes people panic. They're like, oh, you know what, it's no longer profitable for me. And if you have a look at what actually happens on a week-to-week basis, so here's a graph from 2020, just I guess around about COVID, or just maybe a few weeks after from COVID, all the way to now. And you can see that you could have enjoyed anywhere from sub $1, I don't know, maybe 70 cents traffic, all the way to $10. That's obviously, these are average CPMs. And so you can see how much volatility there is. That's a 10x difference, right? And so most markets have a similar sort of a chart around this, and you can see a general trend that's sort of going from the bottom left to the top right. So things are getting expensive, and sometimes, as you can see here, the volatility. Let's say you started a traffic here, and you are extremely profitable, and so you are maybe around about, let's say, just less than the $4 mark, and you jacked up all the way to 10. It would be quite difficult to make that campaign profitable unless your margins were so great that you could absorb that. But in most cases, almost everybody, if this would happen to you, you would have to stop your traffic or something, or at least have a second look and see what's going on. And so you've got this volatility, and all of a sudden you start blaming your funnel, or you start blaming the traffic source, you start blaming whatever. It's just it's a free market in this thing, and there's volatility around it. So that's the other thing to go and check, and just make sure that your pricing has not changed, as in your CPMs have not changed too much. And so having an idea about the broad CPMs would give you that. Now, if you are running that weekly spreadsheet that I've shared previously around the conversions, that will very clearly indicate that your CPMs have jacked up. So if you are filling out that spreadsheet, then you will see that is actually happening. All right, and so that's another thing to very quickly identify where the issue is. Now, let's say if this has happened to you, let's say this is your situation where you've gone from like a $4, like a $4 CPM to $10 CPM. Well, there's really nothing much you can do. Like, are you really going to go around hacking your funnel? No, it's just the cost of traffic has gone up, and really there's not much more you can do about that. Well, at least not to your existing funnel. You may have to come up with a new funnel, a totally new campaign to address high prices. Maybe you're going to change your targeting. Maybe I guess there are things you can do. Maybe you can mess around with the targeting a little bit to see if you can narrow down who you're sending your leads to. But generally speaking, in that short term, this would tell you, what, okay, pricing's gone up. My current funnel is not going to work in this environment, obviously. So you got to go back to the drawing board for that. Right. So once again, that's a topic for next week or the week after, where we're going to look at new campaigns. All right. So that's looking at natural pricing and volatility. If there's any questions, please just post in the chat or unmute the mic. Next comes the special events and time of the year. Your Cyber Monday, Christmas, Valentine's, I don't know, all the other different things that happen. They also contribute to that. Going into December, There's a lot of special events that are coming up in countries like the US. You will see a lot more volatility in pricing, be it Cyber Monday, or Cyber Friday, or sorry, is it Good Friday, Cyber Monday? I always mess those two up. So that, and also there's economic factors, less likely at this small time scale. So, for example, if the stock market, crashes, 2% or 5%, I don't think that's going to show up in your Google ads or your Facebook ads in short, possible, but highly unlikely. But nevertheless, it's a factor you want to keep in place. Maybe the inflation numbers have just come out or whatever. So I don't think, unless you're in a market segment that potentially is quite volatile to those things, but then you would be aware of that because that's your market. So having an awareness there, but this usually affects more on a slightly longer time scale. Not quite, hey, my campaign worked last Friday, but on Monday it doesn't. Economic factors aren't probably going to be the reason for that. A bigger one is probably the algo changes, right? Because the algos are always changing, and you potentially could be affected by that. If that's the case, then this is where you can post in the Facebook group or whatever to identify if it's affected other things. But there's another solution for this. I'll share that very shortly on the next slide, where you don't have to go and approach anybody else. Right, where did your funnel break? Now, this is the more important one. Now you're going a little bit granular. Assumes you have tracking in place, so where you're looking at now versus the prior period. So let's say last 7 days haven't quite worked out. So you look at the last 7 days data, and you compare that to something 2, 3, 4 weeks ago, and see where the differences are. Was it the impression share that got affected? Was it your click-through rates on the ads got affected? Was it the actual clicks versus the lander? This is an important one. I don't see a lot of people checking this out. This is where you look at the ad clicks. So I got unique clicks of 500, but my tracking software, GA or whatever, is only showing that 400 turned up. Now, GA is not perfect. There are browser issues where it does not track. So leaving that aside, you should be seeing that the number is consistent between now and a prior period. So, for example, if you got 1,000 clicks and 800 and 900 people arrive, you're losing 10%, and that could be because the tracking software didn't trigger because they've got blocking JavaScript or any number of reasons, right? As long as that number is consistent, so you don't want to have like 1,000 to 600 now, because now you've got a 40% loss versus a 10% loss, which has been historically what the losses have been in terms of not being able to track. That doesn't mean the traffic didn't arrive. It just means that that person was not tracked, right? So just making sure you check for that. You've got your lender scroll and or your start node. What I mean by this is you can trigger if someone touches their mouse or the screen when they move from the page that it loads. So as soon as it loads, if I move 10% or 20%, you can actually trigger a tracking event of some sort. It could be some sort of a micro conversion you're looking at. So what it's showing is the interest been affected when someone lands? So let's say if you've got 10% of the people who land scroll, and that drops to 5%, then perhaps something went wrong with the landing page, right? So as you can see here, all of these metrics, they're showing you a real human behavior or they're indicative of the change so it's a change in the data that's showing you there's something wrong in the underlying asset that you're using. So that's the whole why we're doing a comparison between now and some long-term average. So it just goes to show you that having this data set available as in your normal tracking would be a great way to very quickly identify if something's gone wrong. So let's say, for example, you're tracking this week after week, day after day, month after month. You'd have a pretty pulse, you'd be kind of on the pulse of the market or your campaign at least about what these numbers look like. So if there's any deviation beyond normal, you'd know straight away. In fact, you could even set up triggers to notify you should these numbers deviate. And let's say, for example, if you're tracking this in a Google Sheet, you could trigger, for example, a Slack message, or you could trigger an email or an SMS or whatever to you or your team or whoever it is who looks after this stuff to be notified that we've sort of outside the normal range here. And so therefore, you want to look at this. And that would be indicative of your campaigns being affected well before the campaign's actually affected. So before you notice it in the conversion in your revenue data, you'd see things would start triggering much earlier in the process. So if you're looking for an early warning system, this is how I would kind of set that up. And then obviously you've got your node level conversions, which is each step in the funnel process or the decision tree, what's actually happening. Did a conversion start dropping off on one of the, some node, or maybe a combination of nodes? Right now, the one thing that I forgot to add here is looking at the profile, and this would go again in the geo and the geo data and the ad data. So breaking the funnel down by the ads and the geographic and the device data associated with that ad itself. So say, for example, 3 weeks ago, ad number 1 had most of the people from California, and 60% was iPhone. This week, when I've had a bad week, I'm seeing that traffic has moved to, I don't know, let's say Nebraska. Right? Obviously, I'm picking weird examples to illustrate the point, because obviously, very rarely you're going to see that kind of a difference where the entire state just moves. But you will see there's volatility, and what's happened here, or what potentially could have happened, is that the traffic source has moved to some other audience, and as a result, you're not getting the same people you're getting 3-4 weeks ago. That is a I can't believe I forgot to add that into the notes here. But that is a super important point to be aware of, because what it's showing is that your ads are targeting a different group of people than are actually converting. And that is, there could be just an algo change, or you run out of gas on your ads. So for example, Google is or Facebook or whatever has run out of audience and it's looking for a new pocket. You may have to restart the campaign, make some changes, all that sort of stuff. So, but it's, once again, it's indicative of what could have happened that has resulted in the campaign dying or not performing quite as well. Right. So as you can see here, it's a multi-factor problem. So the usual solution is like, just go fix this, write a new ad. That kind of stuff is just nonsense. I mean, maybe you got to write a new ad, but based on what you can see here, there's easily 10 or 15 things that you can check that could potentially explain what's actually going on, or a combination of things can explain what's actually going on. So having the tracking in place and these sort of trigger systems in place is actually going to be quite important, right? And is a far better way to solve the problem of why your campaign stopped working. Now, in the case of the Facebook post that I saw, they reported a couple of days later that the campaign is back up again, and they actually made no changes. So clearly it looked like some sort of either algo change or something of that sort, right? So like I said, there is volatility. All right, looking at the next thing here. Okay, right, so what to fix? Depending on how you're running your business and what ad spends are and your cash flow situation, all that sort of stuff, you could just let it keep running, or you could taper off your ad spend. You could set up a rule saying, listen, when my conversions drop by X, drop my spend by Y. So sometimes volatility fixes itself. So you just want to start lowering. Obviously, wasting money does not make sense. But having said that, if you've been running this campaign long enough, you would know you have periods of losses, and then things pick back up. If that's the case, don't just stop the campaign. In this case, obviously, you may have commitments to your sales team or your clients. You want to keep your campaign running so that way at least the client stays happy. But be very, very careful, right? This is an important one. You want to make sure that the lead quality at the client has not dropped off. It doesn't matter if your leads have dried up and you can sustain some losses for a week or two or whatever it is. You want to make sure that the client or the sales team is not getting bad leads now. If that happens, then potentially the entire business is at jeopardy. All right, it's happened to someone that reached out to me a few weeks ago, where someone posted about how they can get cheap Facebook traffic, and they just wholesale made some changes, didn't split test anything that sort, and then literally about 4 to 6 weeks later, they got a letter from the client. I believe it was a $500,000 to $1 million a year client, said, sorry, we are ending our relationship with you because your leads no longer perform. So while the lead gen is making a high margin, the client's not making anything or making losses. So okay, that's the ultimate litmus test is what's the sales team or the downstream usage of the leads reporting to you. And so just be careful of that, all right? Because you don't want to, if something does happen, let them know saying, hey, can you report to me if the conversions have been affected? That way you can make much more corrective action. So rather than them spending money on your leads needlessly to sustain losses, you just slow down the traffic or sort of, some other corrective measure, right? You can do an AA test. So just clone the campaign and run it again, see what happens. Sometimes that picks it up. But the bigger one is the reducing business volatility, right? So typical description of a panic lead gen. This is so typical. Whenever I get this sort of SOS type message, my life has ended. All my campaigns, I should say. What do I do? It's usually one vertical, one or two clients, or just a handful of clients, and Facebook ads. That's it, right? That's the typical description of a panic lead gen, where they singular traffic, singular client, and yeah, you can only blame yourself. Right now, the skills that anyone who does this at scale is transferable to pretty much every market vertical and country, or language even, right? And so really, it's no excuse not to be multi-traffic, multi-vertical, and multi-market, and perhaps multi-country. Probably should have added that. And that ensures that your one vertical and one client plus Facebook ads ends up becoming, sub 10% or sub 5% even in some cases. Now, when you do this, because you're multi-vertical, if Facebook ads are not working, if there's an algo change, then you would see that happening across everything you're running, not just one campaign. And that would be is another reason why to be, because you're no longer relying outside for answers. You've got all the intelligence sitting within the business, and because you're multi-market, multi-traffic, vertical, you are less likely to be affected by any small change anywhere else, right? And that's the important part about it. This is the only long-term solution that there is, if you don't want to be a panicked lead gen. All right, I think that's all I have to say on the topic. Any questions on this? Anything perhaps that I may have missed, or anything you want to add? Perhaps you have a horror story to share. Oh, somebody to turn it around. Yeah, Josh, go for it.
I said no questions. Good stuff.
Okay, cool, awesome. Hopefully, get you some gaps in what you guys are doing.
Nick, would you mind just touching on the point from the previous slide which you hadn't listed?
Yep. This one.
Yeah, I think you said I can't believe I've not added that. Would you mind? I think.
Oh, yeah. Sorry, yeah. So
which
is yeah. Sorry, I should. You know what? Let me go and make the change to this one here, which is audience checking, right? So I'll just run through that again now that I've saved it. It's where you look to see, am I getting the same person that converted 3 weeks ago to who I'm getting into my funnel now? I discovered that so I was looking at a life insurance funnel, and their traffic source was huge. And so, thousands of conversions a day. So thankfully there was a lot of data there. And what happened was they said that the conversions dropped, and obviously they're pretty smart people. So they'd done all this other stuff. So by the time they came to me, we went through this, like a list very similar to this, and it was all tick, tick, tick. So I was like, okay, so what else could it be? And I said, well, traffic is not homogeneous, right? People aren't, and should your campaign run out of audience or algo change or whatever the reason is, doesn't really matter. Your ads could be trying to get a new group of people, and obviously Facebook doesn't tell you that oh, you know what, we've moved to a new audience. It's obviously there's a continuum. So I said to him, okay, well, when did you have a really good week? Which is about, what's a typical good week? And it was like 3 weeks ago. I said, okay, let's pull all the data out from 3 weeks ago. So we dumped all the leads out. And then we did something very similar over the last 5 or 6 days. And we looked at basically the pivot table. These days, you could just upload it perhaps into some AI system and just say, hey, can you tell me a profile of my conversions 3 weeks ago, and do the same thing of a profile of conversions today, and what does the behavior look like? Look at device, look at geographic data, look at what type of answers they're giving you. If you have questions like gender or let's say if you're doing a solo campaign, you have a power bill type of questions, that's thrown in there. Do you see any distinct differences between the two? And if you do see the distinctions between or differences between the two, then what it's showing you is that whatever your traffic source is, it's moved to a pocket or an audience or a type of a group of people that it's bringing into your funnel that is quite different to 3 weeks ago. So this to me is a little bit more of a sophisticated check on the whole thing, because obviously it's a bit more work too. I guess with AI, we'll probably have these things happen much easier. But this one here really tells you when everything else kind of fails. Well, usually you'll see the data elsewhere too, but the traffic is not homogeneous. That's kind of like a I guess an axiom or universal truth of all traffic sources out there. And so it's important to be aware of that. Does that answer the question?
Yeah, fantastic.
Oh, awesome. All right. Okay. Any other comments, questions? No. Paul, nothing? All good?
Yeah, I'm good on this. Yeah, I think doing these checks, I think we're in a good space. Josh,
okay, good. Awesome.
ticking most of I think we're ticking most of the boxes. So yeah, all good.
Pretty good.
Yeah, cool.
When it
Awesome.
breaks, we know if something's broken.
Yeah, exactly. Oh no, well, what I particularly like is so in 2024, you really don't need to even look at the stats every day. What you want to do is set up triggers for exceptions. That way you can go about your life, because looking at stats, it does not make money. Talking to clients, understanding what the market is, the consumer research stuff, all the persuasion SOS stuff we did, that what adds value, not looking at stats. So just let the stats be where they are and have exceptions that gets triggered to notify you if something is outside of range. When you get to steady state, obviously, if you're trying to grow a new campaign, then you would look at it every day. But when you reach some sort of a steady state, you would just set up triggers to do that, and that would be a much more productive use of your time than to be sitting inside a dashboard. All right. Okay, so we released a new feature, and I haven't said anything about it because I actually forgot that we released it. So I'll be doing a much bigger note on the whole thing, and that is that you can actually redirect another decision tree without any of those pesky URL params. This typically, so first I'll share a use case. Oh, I'll explain what the hell I'm talking about here. Is when you move from one decision tree to another. Typically, we had, you would actually add an exit URL where, you're going to put your params like this, right? You don't have to do that anymore, especially if you're moving from one leads of decision tree to another. A typical use case that I've seen where someone is multi-market. So let's say they're a financial planning firm and they're running a broad financial planning campaign. Maybe someone is like a branded campaign on Google search. So I click on the brand name and I end up on a site, but it doesn't have context around what the hell which area of your financial issues are you trying to fix. So this is where you would have a very generic first question is, what are you trying to address here? Is it life insurance, health insurance, retirement, asset protection, estate planning, so on and so forth. And when someone selects that, then they would move into their specific funnel about that topic. So let's say if I say life insurance, it's going to go to a life insurance funnel. If I say health insurance, it's going to go to health insurance. If I say financial planning or retirement planning, it's going to go to retirement planning funnel. If you were to build all of those things inside one decision tree, it actually becomes a bit of a nightmare to manage, and you really should be setting them up separately. And then you have pretty much like a grandfather or a parent decision tree that's redirecting based on the choices being made. We did that some time ago. It was a car funnel. It was in the UK actually, because where I think there was a case around the exhaust or the carbon emissions or whatever it was, some kind of pollution thing that a few of the brands had misreported or underreported or not reported, and they're in violation of that. So as a car owner, I think BMW and Peugeot, whatever it was, you could claim some money that was set aside. You can see a lot of that stuff, which is great. So the company, the legal firm they're working with was kind of playing in that space back then, and so that's what it set up because the claim form for each of the brands was going to be different. So the data points required to claim for Mercedes-Benz, for example, was a little bit different to some other market, for some other vehicle manufacturer. So obviously we had to set up separate decision trees, one for each car brand. So let's say with the 15 car brands, there are 15 different decision trees, and there was one that directed where to send people. Right. And so we did it this way, where we asked a bunch of questions up front. Today, if we were to redo that whole thing, we would not do this. We would use this option right here. And what this option does is whatever data you've captured so far, it'll automatically get pushed to the new decision tree, and the entire lead gets transferred across to the other one. Right. So that's basically how that one works. Now, the team secretly also added another feature, which is where if you pass the lead ID now in your URL param, such as via email or SMS or whatever, you don't have to pass any other. We'll pull the data out automatically from what was previously captured, and it'll actually start appending to that old lead record. Right? I hope that makes sense. So let's say you've got a previous lead and they've given you just the email but not the phone number, and now you're sending them back to get the phone number. You could just tag the URL param. In the URL param, you could just say lead underscore ID equals the lead ID, which is available to you as soon as the lead is generated, or as soon as the person lands, they are given a lead ID. Just send it across to your CRM system, and then from there, when you send your email or SMSs or whatever, just tag that in the URL, and we'll automatically pull the data out, which means first name, last name, all the other details that they've given you previously are all available, which means you can actually build a personalized landing page from a previously captured lead. Right, I'll be doing a full training on this, and I'll post in the Leads Facebook group about how to actually set it up. But I just wanted to introduce this new feature. So it's just it's a little thing to make life a little bit more efficient, and reduce the error rate, especially when you're moving these large params across. If you forget something or whatever, it ends up becoming quite painful. So this way, you don't, as long as you just put the lead ID in and you're done.
Nick, you're about 2 weeks too late on that one. We've just, I think we've just been doing we've been passing everything on and then passing everything back again. So yeah, that's made it a lot easier.
Okay,
But
cool.
with the DT one, to pass
Yes.
it over, would it just be a case of a short DV into a results node, and then each results node would be passed on to a new DT?
Correct,
Okay.
correct, exactly. Yeah. So a setup that looks something like this. So you've got a page where you can ask a question, or I don't know why I got video here, but anyway, it will be like, which of the following benefits are you looking for? Now you could theoretically loop them back here. So we've got a couple of guys who are doing looping, where let's say I select that I want life insurance and health insurance and financial planning. Then what you would do is you would set up tags or something, and then after they've gone through the first decision tree, they'd come back to this one and this one, this one. But what you would do in that case is you would put a node here to transfer some of the data across to the CRM. So should they drop off, you can then bring them back in to do the other parts. So let's say if I selected life insurance, health insurance, and let's say retirement planning, and I only went through the insurance funnel. Well, you don't want to lose the data that this lead ID is associated with 2 other verticals or 2 other market segments or 2 other product types that they are obviously interested in. And so if that's the case, then you could then set up an entire automation campaign, or if the sales team is getting in touch with them, they're like, oh, by the way, you know what? I know you selected whatever the other products. Why don't we talk about that as well? And so we can package it all up, we give you a better price, yada, yada, yada. So if you are gonna, that does get in handy, and that's where the looping part and sending the lead across straight away matters.
Brilliant.
Yeah. Cool. Yeah, sorry we're 2 weeks late. I think
No,
the feature was actually the feature was added in about 2 weeks ago. So I'm the one who missed it. So maybe you just didn't notice it when you were building out your decision tree. You're gonna say, hey Nick, what the hell's this feature here? What's that? Well, what do you mean by redirect another DT?
At least we know both ways now. It's
Correct, exactly. Yeah. At least you know both ways. Well, I guess if it's not lead hook, then you would need that part anyway.
Yeah,
We haven't done that actually, Paul. We were looking, our redirection is from CRM back into lead hook, so it's a little bit different.
Okay. Okay,
Yeah.
so CRM to lead hook, then you would just pass the lead ID in the URL param.
Oh, so all you need is lead ID. As long as you grab the lead ID,
Correct,
it grabs
correct. Yeah,
information.
yeah, yeah.
Damn.
Now that's what I've been told. I haven't done the training on this yet, so just give me 24 hours.
As soon as that's
All
done,
right.
that'll really
I'm gonna put a
change
big
the game.
caveat here because they release all kinds of stuff and then they say, "Hey Nick, by the way, we did this," and I'm like, and then when I go to test it, 99% of the time it's working as expected. Someone's like, hey, what do you mean? Sorry, we forgot to push that one in or whatever, like. So just give me 24 hours. I'll be releasing the videos on the whole thing and show you some use cases and some if there's any gotchas that I run into.
That'd be useful for MC as well.
Correct.
We're doing the same sort of stuff, but MC, same sort of stuff. We pass meters of URL parameters from the email back into lead hook.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's precisely. Yeah, so that would be. And in fact, in some cases, you can't do that because it's too big. Yeah, someone reached out to me. He said, "Oh, I want to pass the params across, but I reach, the limits of the URLs, which is 2,000 and whatever something characters." I'm like, "Well, that's a browser limitation. Not much we can do about it." But this lead ID issue would actually address that. Would fix that.
Does this also allow for basic cookie saving then?
Yeah, absolutely. You can bring back any amount of old data that you have. You can, as long as it's sitting in custom fields, it can be recalled. The only limitation is that it's not a full CRM, so it's not going to work like some lead record you saved like 9 months ago, because we do remove stuff after I think 3 or 4 weeks or whatever, as per our terms and conditions. We don't keep leads forever, but in most leads and campaign, it's not like someone's trying to send people back to leads hook after like 9 months. If that's the case, then you might have to do that. But having said that, if there is a requirement, let us know, because we are doing some big upgrades. Sorry, you had a question there.
You said custom fields. Does it also include the custom tracking
Everything.
fields? Because
Everything.
FBCLID?
Everything.
That's huge.
Yeah, everything. Exactly.
People sell it as a standalone product.
Yeah, it's a whole different way of using lead hook. I know it's like it's only lead ID, but the implications of this are huge in terms of conversions and ease of managing everything.
Well, that's massive.
Yeah. Yeah. Cool. Any other questions on this or anything else that you guys are working on or troubling you?
Nick, with the, I think I sent you a question before regarding the formatting of the icon on the, I'm not sure if you can show me without revealing the,
sure.
Yeah, revealing the thing, but the DT itself.
Formatting of what icon again?
Sorry, I sent you a Loom earlier today.
Oh, okay, right. Okay, sorry, I missed it. Why don't you just ask if I can? Are you talking about the icon on when you go to websites, like the one that sits here?
No, sorry. So on the button, we want the icon on the side of the writing instead of above. And I know you can do up to a point in appearance. You can move it to the left side. And
Listen now, because we've got we're doing CSS now. We're helping with CSS, so just reach out to the team, or I'll forward your message to the team, and they can get back to you with the CSS edit if there's any required.
Okay, perfect. All right, sounds. Oh, and the other one regarding the car models, I had to go with the knowledge base of putting the umbrella term of the actual model, and then sorry, the brand, and then the model. But for some reason, it was only pulling up the brand, and I couldn't go down the to the second.
So I'm assuming you're talking about the drop down fields.
Yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
got it. Okay, cool. Right, let's go and check that out. Let's see if I have drop down. Okay, so let's look at car make. Oh crap, I don't know which one this is sitting in. All right, 1 second. Let me just see if I can find that decision tree. Car. Let's see. Drop down. Nope. Well, let's just build it. All right. car drop down. So before we do that, let's just have a look here. This car make. Okay, continue. Right, to Toyota Bentley. And then if I go to models, I should see that there you go. So there's a parent and it's got the child, right? So
Okay.
we've got car make, car model. So if I come here and select drop down, then what I would do, drop down. So select car, and I add my custom field, and I'm gonna go car. I believe it was this one. All right. And I think that's it. It's been a while since I used this. Let me have a quick look and see if that's the case. Okay, result. Let's test it out. For memory, all you have to do is just make sure that's been set up, and as long as you select that, it'll automatically pick it up. But let's.
I think it was all in the same drop down. So if you put in Hyundai, then it picked up on Hyundai, and then it only showed you the drop downs of the Hyundai models, and then the year after that. So it was a kind of like, instead of having every model, every brand.
Correct.
Yeah.
It should. Yeah, it should. Yeah. Oh, for some reason, I am missing something. It should be a conditional drop down. Is there an option that I'm missing? Multis. And I don't think that's the right one. Okay. I did pick the right custom field, right? Toyota. Right. Let me get back to you on this just to make sure I am. Yeah, it's been a while since I've used this feature. So yeah, let me get back to you with a video on how to set it up. But from memory, it's not supposed to be this hard. So yeah, I'm drawing a blank here. So yeah, I'll get back to you as soon as we jump off the call. I'll have a look at that first. In fact, I'll actually build it right here and just show you a short loom on how to set it up.
Okay. Cheers, Nick. Appreciate it. Thank you.
No problem. Thank you. Right. Any other questions? No. Right. Okay. Well, guys, if there's no more questions, we'll do it same time, same place next week. Otherwise, have a good week.